Today, we become legends.
Today's Titan Talk went over the balance patch notes for OB14, some spoilers for new items in OB15, discussions around the solo lane meta, branching starter items, Persephone, and a whole lot more. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already so you can catch my future recaps as they drop, but without further ado, let's jump into the recap. First up, a large portion of the show today was dedicated to the OB14 balance notes and some teasers for new items coming in OB15, so let's jump right into that. First up is God balance, with Anher's aspect no longer resetting its stacks if you damage a different god with an ability. So only hitting a basic attack on a different god will make you lose that attack speed now. Bacchus aspect is getting a buff with the bonus strength on his 1 going up slightly, as well as the buff duration now just being 6 seconds flat instead of 4 scaling up to 6, which should be pretty big for his early clear. Next up is Cernanos, who's getting quite a few changes. First up, there's been a tooltip fix on his 1, as it was previously stating that fall reduced protections by a percentage when it was actually reducing by a flat number, and that is intended. So no actual change here, just a tooltip correction. However, they did buff almost every form of his 1, with Summer's damage going up quite a bit, Fall's protection shred going up by 5 at all ranks, Winter's slow going up a bit, as well as the slow duration going up from 1.5 seconds to 2, and they also made a change so that Cernanos' 3 now applies his current season effect on hit, which is certainly interesting, especially for the aspect. Mercury is getting some buffs here too, as he's been underperforming since his launch, with his passive damage bonus going up from 0.04% to 0.05% per stack, which is 20% to 25% at max stacks, as well as his ultimate now scaling down from 90 seconds to 70 instead of 90 seconds flat. Non-aspect Thor specifically is getting some strength scaling buffs with 10% more on his 1 and 15% more on his 3. These changes do not apply to aspect Thor though, who's already doing quite well. Scylla is getting a non-aspect nerf and an aspect buff in this patch too, with Crush losing 5% scaling and 5% magical prot shred, but the aspect now gives you 1 mana regen per max rank ability and 5 mana regen at the max rank of her ultimate, as well as a substantial increase to the mana scaling on her ultimate. Aladdin is getting some pretty heavy nerfs here too, especially to his 1, where they have reduced both the base damage and scaling of his 1 in both forms of casting it, the small hits and the large hit. This is on the return damage specifically though, so the initial hit will be unchanged. They are also reducing the damage taken and damage dealt penalties for non-combatants in the ultimate. Artemis is getting a small nerf, taking 10% scaling off of her 3. Awilix is getting some changes as well, with her bonus strength from initiative going down by 10%. Her attack chain contribution to Feather Step has also been modified from 1.52x damage to 1.2 damage. And her ultimate stun has also been reduced from 0.8 seconds to 0.5. Ganesha is getting some more aspect nerfs, which makes sense. They have completely removed the slow from his ultimate in the aspect and increased the cooldown to 100 seconds, again in aspect only. Base Ganesha is unaffected by these changes. Aspect Guan Yu is also getting a nerf, with the intelligence from his passive being reduced from 1 per stack to 0.75 per stack, and the bonus in at max stacks going from 2 to 1. So overall, this brings him down from 65 to 35 at max stack. Loki is getting a couple of small nerfs as well, as the final damage on his 3 and ultimate are both losing 10% strength scaling. Hele nerfs are coming too, with her lifesteal on the passive going down from 30% to 25. The strength scaling on both the inner and outer areas of her 2 are losing 10% strength scaling, and her ultimate is losing a bit of base damage from the initial hit. Princess Barry is getting a few more nerfs as well, with her 3 losing 20% strength scaling and her ultimate losing 10% on the pulses and 20% on the final hit. This is pretty significant, as it effectively takes 80% scaling out of her kit dump, assuming you use the 3 twice thanks to your ultimate. They seem to want you to build int on Barry if you're going to be going for ability damage rather than strength. Kali is also getting some nerfs, thank god. They are decreasing the heal on target kill from 40% to 30%, decreasing the penetration against a marked target from 15% to 10%, and the gold bounty bonus on killing a marked target from 20% to 15%. The base heal on her 1 is also going down, mostly in the later ranks, and her ultimate is losing a bit of both kinds of scaling. And the only item balance in this update is a cost increase and lifesteal nerf to Serrated Edge, but they mentioned on the show that there's no real item balance in this update because they are cooking a much larger item pass for OB15. Pon said the main thing they are looking at for this pass is healing, lifesteal, and anti-heal, as they feel like there's a big problem in the game at the moment, at least in fairly high level games, where you are basically forced to build anti-heal, which is absolutely true, and it doesn't feel great and limits build diversity. Pon did say that the notes for these changes are already about 9 pages long, and there's going to be around 9 or 10 new items in the next update. I personally have seen these changes they're going to be making to give early feedback, and obviously I I can't spoil any specifics, but I will say that most of the new items look really fun, and a handful of them really push the boundaries of what an item can do. So I'm pretty excited for the next update in regards to itemization. But that's it for the main balance portion of the show. Let's move into Q&A. First up, chat was asking for a teaser on one of the new items, and Pon revealed that Typhon's Fang will be retired in its current iteration and replaced with Typhon's Heart, which is an item that summons a monster of Typhon with a health pool to attack enemies and does damage based on your lifesteal and your intelligence, and your lifesteal will heal it. This monster is summoned by gaining stacks, but Pon didn't specify exactly how those stacks are gained, and if you reach max stacks while you already have the monster summoned, it will full heal instead. This is one of the items I was talking about that sort of pushes the boundaries of what an item can do and be in Smite, and there's quite a few others with a similar level of craziness in this next update. Chat also asked if there are any Smite 1 returning items in this pass, and Pon said definitely 2, maybe 3. This is a healing pass, so I imagine you guys can speculate on which healing items might be good to bring over from Smite 1. Someone asked about the performance and crash issues brought on by OB13's move to UE 5.5, and Isaiah said they are working on some fixes for this, and they should have a hotfix going out later today for that, which will be yesterday as you watch this, so it should already be out. Chat was asking for Pon's thoughts on quick play combat dodge, and he said as a quick play feature, he likes it and thinks it is fun to use, but if they were to try to bring it to main game mode, it would need some pretty substantial adjustments to stuff like the cooldown, the visibility of it, how it interacts with certain gods and abilities, etc. There were some questions about solo lane and the current meta in chat, and Pon said that they are looking at general objective play and pacing at the moment, which should help solo lane more than it does other roles. He didn't say exactly this, but I think the idea is that if objectives are more valuable and more accessible earlier on near solo lane, then they can get more involved in taking those. And it should mean that warriors and similar will be able to leverage their winning fight potential against the damage dealing solo laner, whereas right now the laning phase is just farming and warriors really can't compete in that department. They outfight damage dealers for the most part early on, especially once you get 1 or 2 defense items online, but they can't keep up in farm. So if there's more relevant objectives that are reasonable for solo lane to rotate to and fight over early on, then warriors can make more of an impact in those skirmish fights than something like a mage would. Someone asked if you can rebind the dodge button, and Pon said not at the moment as it was implemented pretty fast as just a quick play test. If it sticks around though and makes it to main game modes, they will definitely put in the effort to make it rebindable. There was a question about starter items and if they bring back the branching upgrades, and Pon said that would be a pretty significant arc of work in terms of adding like 12 new items to the game or whatever, as they probably want to do them all at the same time rather than having only some starters with branches and some without, and at the moment they're sort of weighing up if they want to bring back that Smite 1 style system with starters or try something completely new with them. Someone asked which god Pon would bring over if they could instantly make it happen, and he said probably King Arthur, which makes sense. He's one of the hardest gods in the game to make, but also very popular and was originally designed by Pon. There was a question about bringing Blink onto an active item, and Pon said it's something they've talked about and they could maybe even bring Combat Blink back in that way, but personally I feel like Combat Blink is too powerful and too universal to have on an item. Every role would want to build it and it would limit build diversity and also have potential issues depending on the stats the item has. If it has tank stats, for example, damage dealers might end up buying it and feeling way tankier than they should, that kind of stuff. Some effects are just better relegated to a relic in my opinion. Someone asked if they thought about more unique basic attacks like a channel beam or something like that, and Pon said they absolutely have and continue to do so, but there's a balance point to be found there in terms of does it break the game too much and is it fun to play against. He said they did actually try a channel beam for Zeus at one point, but it just felt too unfun to play against with very little counterplay, so they decided to not go with it. Personally, I do love when gods have something unique with their basic attacks like Arthur or Charybdis, but absolutely it can be hard to balance and make fun for everyone, not just the player using it. Someone asked which god Pon dreads bringing to the game the most, and he definitely said Persephone. He was the original designer and the lead on the rework, so he gets all the praise and all the hate for that kind of stuff, and there's of course the elephant in the room of do you bring over her old kit or her new one. He did say that they would almost certainly remove the after death thing on her passive though and give her a new passive, since as similar to the previous question, it's incredibly hard to balance and make fun for everyone. It's fun for Persephone, but for the enemies you are just punishing them for doing what they're meant to do in Smite, kill the enemy. And of course the new passive is so heavily restricted for that reason to the point that it's no longer fun for the Persephone player themselves, so they would likely give her a new passive when she comes over. There was a question about split pushing and how strong it is at the moment, and Pon said it's a bit of a balancing act with those kind of strategies. You want them to be viable, but not the dominant strategy where the best way to play the game is just run it down split pushing towers and not caring about actually fighting the enemies, because that's not really what Smite is about its core. It's the most fun when fighting is the way to go. But that's everything discussed on today's Titan Talk. Don't forget to drop a like before you leave and subscribe so you don't miss all my future recaps, and I'll catch you guys for another one later on. Have a great day, and peace out, you nerds.